What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Run with Jay channel. So today we're going to be reviewing the SAUCONY Endorphin Pro 3. So the Endorphin line has been very popular over the last few years with the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro. They are favorites of a lot of runners out there, myself included. They're quick, lightweight, fast, no frills. They just basically do what they're intended to do, which is to go fast for longer distances. So, I'm a big fan of those shoes, and today we're going to test out the Endorphin Pro 3, see how this compares to last year's version, along with all of the other carbon-based, marathon racing shoes out there. So, if you guys enjoy this content, please hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the bell for the notifications. And a big thank you to all my returning subscribers for all your contribution and support. So let's get this review started. So before we get started, for those of you that already do have the Endorphin Pro 3, please let me know down below if you guys have a strong smell from the foam on the Endorphin Pro 3. It is super strong. As soon as I open the box, I can get a whiff of that petroleum, kind of smell right away. I'm pretty sure it's this huge stack of foam, but let me know if you guys also smell it, or it could just be me. So on to the specs. So this shoe looks like it's totally redesigned from the Endorphin Pro 2, which in my opinion was pretty much the same thing as the Endorphin Pro 1. And the 3, has a kind of redesign. I really like it, and of course right away you can see a huge amount of foam that they've added to compete or to kind of align with all the other, carbon-based, marathon racing shoes out there. So this shoe is definitely now in the ranks with all of the, heavy hitters out there, like the Alpha Fly Next Percent 2 and the Adios Pro, as well as the RC Elite 2 and shoes similar to that. So this shoe was released in August of 2022. Last year's version was released around June of 2021. The cost of this shoe has gone up about $25 now at $225 here in the US. Last year's version was $200, so like other brands, everything has gone up lately, so no surprise this shoe has gone up as well. So $225, it sits in pretty much, that market and that price range of high-end shoes, which is around $200 to $275, for the Alpha Fly Next Percent 2. So this shoe is not cheap by any means, but it's also not the most expensive racing shoe out there. So weight-wise, with the new foam and all the changes that they've done, surprisingly, it has come down in weight. So last year's version weighed in about 7.5 ounces. This year weighed in about 7.2 ounces, or about 204 grams. So which is very surprising. It's gotten a little bit lighter as well. The offset has stayed the same at 8 millimeters. However, the heel drop has increased almost to the max, World Athletics limit of 40 millimeters, but it sits just below that at 39.5 in the heel and 31.5 in the forefoot. Last year's version was 35.5 in the heel and 27.5 in the forefoot. So besides that, the internals of this shoe have pretty much remained the same. You still get that S-curve carbon fiber plate that runs in between the shoes to give you that bounce, that energy return, similar to all of the other racing shoes out there. And also you get that Power Run PB huge stack of foam that, Saucony has added, which is much beefier compared to last year's version. So definitely this shoe gives you a much more smoother and cushioned ride as opposed to the Saucony Endorphin 1 and 2, which is a little bit stiffer compared to this version. So this shoe also sports the XT900 grip on the outsole. The pattern of this year's version has changed since last year's. The outsole has some, foam cutouts, I guess, to save on weight. And also the middle of the shoe, there's a huge cutout where you can actually see the S-curve carbon fiber plate. So a lot of shoes are, what they're doing is cutting out foam on the bottom or on the sides to save on weight, because, weight is very important to a lot of runners. And the grip on the shoe is pretty good. I didn't have any issues while running with this new grip. I think it might actually grip a tiny bit better compared to last year's version, where there's, rubber on the outside strips as opposed to, just the top and the bottom like a lot of shoes out there. So with all of that jam packed, you also get the speed roll technology that Saucony has put together in their racing shoes, which gives you a very smooth heel to toe transition to make you want to go faster. So the size I got was 8.5. They fit perfect, true to size, with just a little bit of toe room for me. So I didn't have any issues with having to change sizes. However, the forefoot here, I thinking it was enough space for me, but for people with wider feet, they might have some issues, getting all of their foot on here. It could be a little bit narrow, but for me, it was perfect. So this shoe has a redesigned mesh upper with a lot of holes, which is pretty much see-through when you have your socks on. And each of these holes is covered with tiny strands, that like tinsel strands. Is pretty interesting, that glows in the night. And also there's a Saucony rubber logo on the side now, which is a nice design. And they also have these iridescent kind of like, coatings now in the tongue as well as on the edge of the upper, which gives it a nice, really bright color. So that's definitely stands out in the crowd while you're running. Pink seems to be a very popular color with shoes these days. And this is definitely something that is not your ordinary color, and it'll definitely stand out if you want something different. The laces are a little bit better than your average laces. They do have these ridges on them, so it helps lock down the shoe better, so you don't have to keep retying your laces. The tongue is sewed in to the sides of the mesh upper, and they now have 3 circular punch holes in them to, I guess, save on weight. So its tongue is super thin. There's really not much padding on it as well. So similar to the previous Endorphin Pro versions, they've gone pretty much minimalistic with the shoe, only putting in exactly that they need in order to try to save weight and add to things such as the foam that's more important to runners. So speaking of the foam, you have the Power Run PB foam here, which this year includes a huge stack of foam. So they've definitely increased the foam amount in the shoe, and you definitely feel it while running in the shoe. So this entire white piece of bottom is now Power Run PB foam with the S-curve carbon fiber plate somewhere in between the foam to give you that energy return as well as that cushion and comfort for longer mile runs as well as marathon racing. In the back, you have these kind of just, very small amount of cushioning in the Achilles area. And also there's a very small like heel counter in the back to give you that stability, but everything else is pretty much foam. And like I talked about before, you have the XT900 grip on the bottom as well as the speed roll technology in the shoe to help you keep moving forward and transition faster in your strides. So I was skeptical about the Endorphin Pro 3 before it was released. I was kind of let down by the Endorphin Pro 2 because it was pretty much the same as the 1. The 3 does look like it's totally redesigned, and while running in this shoe, you definitely can feel the difference in this shoe in terms of ride and comfort and stiffness as opposed to the previous 2 versions. This shoe is very similar to your higher stack kind of foam shoes like the Adios Pro 3 or the RC Elite 2 or even the Asics Metaspeed Sky. So that kind of very thick cushion stack high kind of feel is brought in now to the Endorphin Pro 3, and it just it has a very similar feel to all of those other shoes. It is comfortable. There's a lot of cushion, and it's definitely for longer mileage. My feet doesn't hurt or isn't as tired as much as opposed to the previous 2 versions where they were a little bit stiff, and after a while it could get a little bit tiring on your legs if you do run longer mileage. But this shoe, I'm pretty confident that in long miles you'll feel a lot more comfortable, and there's just so much cushion in this shoe. Pretty much like all of the other higher end cushioned marathon racing shoes out there. And having tried so many of these high stack cushion marathon racing shoes, it is very difficult now to kind of tell the difference because everybody's trying to keep up with technology, and everybody's shoes are kind of going at the same direction with basically max foam, max cushion, comfort, and then shove in a carbon plate in there. So for an average runner looking for a carbon fiber racing shoe, they would probably be do well in any of these options out there, really depending on your foot and how you feel in each shoe. There's not really much now that separates all of these brands, as they're pretty much all doing the same thing with their higher end racing shoes. So like I said before, this shoe is comfortable. It's got a lot of cushion, and gives great energy return. And like the previous predecessors, it makes you want to go forward. It wants you to go fast pretty much. So it stayed true to its origins, which is good. However, I just don't think there's anything that just wows me, in my personal opinion, right now with the shoe. Since I've tried on so many of these, higher end racing shoes now, it basically seems like Saucony now has just caught up with all of the other brands, and now they can finally throw this shoe in the ring with all those other, heavyweights like the Alpha Fly Next Percent 2 and Adios Pro 3. And definitely, for people that are big fans of Saucony and the Endorphin line, this would be a nice upgrade in your collection if you're looking for a newer like marathon racing shoe or just a fast tempo kind of shoe. This shoe will be perfect for that. In my opinion, if where this shoe would fit my shoe rotation would be probably just a tempo shoe that I would use when I need to go on faster pace runs, or a shoe that I would do for longer runs that I need to go faster in. So this, to me, in my opinion, seems like a quick tempo run training shoe companion to my racing shoes out there. And of course, everybody's foot and sizing is different, so my personal preference would not work for some other people, and some people just work well in certain brands compared to others. So for me, a lot of the Nike shoes work for me, so I will probably stick to the Alpha Flies for racing, and if and I would probably use this as a training companion for tempo, quick, or speed runs. There were a lot of great things about the Endorphin Pro 3. However, if I were to name some negatives, I would probably say that the material and the Achilles part of the shoe could be a little bit rough. So if you're wearing low cut socks, it could lead to blisters or heel rubs. So I recommend wearing higher socks to avoid that issue. So I think Saucony has done a great job with the Endorphin Pro 3. They've kind of overhauled the design of the shoe. They made it look really nice. I love the colorway as well as the other two black and the white colors that they have released. The iridescent colors really shine and you kind of stand out, between all the other shoes out there. And on the back, some of these threads actually go in the dark, which is pretty cool. Other than that, they've increased the cushion, added a huge amount of foam, made this shoe very comfortable and pleasant to run in for tempo or fast-paced runs, as well as longer mileage runs, to help minimize the soreness of your legs. I really like the shoe. I think it'll be a great option for people out there looking for a marathon racer, as well as a person looking for just a quick tempo training shoe that they can use for fast runs. And I personally think you can also use this shoe for daily runs. I think Saucony shoes last a long time, and the Endorphin Speed is an example of that. Uses pretty much the same foam. It also has a plastic plate in there, and you can go on and on in that shoe. And I think the Saucony shoe will last you a really long time as well. In my opinion, I don't think racing shoes are only good for a few races. I've used my racing shoes now for over 500-600 miles even, and they still are fine. So I think this shoe could last you a while in terms of durability. If you want to use it as a daily trainer, probably not the best idea for a recovery slow pace shoe, as the carbon fiber might be a little bit rough on your legs. I would definitely go with other options for that. But if you're looking for a marathon racer that's comfortable, that's got a lot of foam and it's got a lot of cushion, I would definitely look into this as an option. And for people that just love Saucony, love the brand and their shoes, this is probably a great option to have in a nice upgrade. So if I'm comparing this shoe to, let's say, the Alpha Flight Next Percent or the Adios Pro 3, I still think, in my opinion, that those two shoes have a slight advantage over this shoe because they just have the extra pop of that gives you that burst of speed as opposed to this shoe. And don't get me wrong, this shoe definitely is quick and it definitely gets you on, get you moving, quickly, and the turnover. But I just feel like those shoes have, just that extra something that, it's hard to describe, but it just makes me want to go faster as opposed to this shoe. But maybe, after more miles in this shoe, it might change my mind. But I'm still going to stick with my Alpha 5 for my marathon races. And the Adios Pro, I reviewed that shoe earlier, and the 3 was sort of a disappointment. It's still a good shoe, but I personally would go back to the Adios Pro 2 if I still could get a pair of those. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below in the comment section, what do you guys think of the Endorphin Pro 3? Is this a pickup or a skip? If you guys do have this shoe already, I would love to hear your feedback. Has this shoe been disappointing, or you really are enjoying this new version as opposed to the previous two versions out there? So if you guys have any other comments, feedback, or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. I hope you guys are all staying safe and your training is going well. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys on the next run.